functions as well as transformations. So we want to look at, make sure you know the domain and the range, even and odd, make sure you how to identify them algebraically as well as graphically, and as well as be able to describe the transformations of a function. So that's the problem that I'm going to start off with. This one is describe the transformations to get the graph g of x from f of x. So let's go and take a look at what we want our f of x to be. And let's just kind of work through something basic. Let's say f of x is going to be an x squared. We should all be familiar with the quadratic function. And then let's go ahead and make g of x here a negative. Let's do an x minus 3 quantity squared plus 1. All right, so what we basically want to be able to do is say, how am I going to get g of x from f of x? So if this is going to be my original graph, what exactly am I doing? And basically what I need to do is understand what are the transformations that are being applied to g of x. So you can see there's a couple things that's going on. We're multiplying by a negative on the outside. We are subtracting a 3 on the inside of the function, and we're adding a 1 on the outside. So the main thing I want to stress to you about remembering transformations with functions is it doesn't matter what the function is, guys. It doesn't matter if it's a quadratic, if it's a radical, it's a reciprocal function, square root, logarithmic, sine. Whenever you have operations that are outside the function, okay, those are going to be what we call vertical transformations. You see they're shifting it up or down, stretching or compressing up or down, or reflecting up or down. So let's go and take a look at our two outside operations. We have a multiplying by -1 and we have an adding a 1. So whenever we are multiplying by a negative on the outside, that is going to be what we call a reflect the x-axis. Now, if that number was larger than 1, then we'd have a vertical stretch. And if it was less than 1, it'd be a vertical compression. When we are adding or subtracting outside of the function, that's going to be shifting the graph up or down. Since we're adding a 1, that's going to be actually a shift up 1 unit. Now let's go and take a look at the transformations inside. These are going to be your horizontal transformations. If you had a negative multiplied by your x on the inside, that would be a reflection about the y-axis. If you had a larger number or number multiplied by that x, which is larger 1, that'd be a horizontal compression. If it was less than 1, but between 0 and 1, that'd be a horizontal stretch. And in this case, when we are subtracting, that's actually going to be a shift 3 units to the right. So we'll say is shift 3 units, can't write there, 3 units right. Okay, and again, that just comes back from this basic transformation function here, guys. The a times b, x minus c plus d. So you can see it's always the opposite. So it's the plus d is the exact same sign, whatever it is. But this inside, this is going to be opposite. So if it's plus, you go to the right. I'm sorry, if it's plus, you go to the left. If it's negative or subtract, you're going to go to the right. All right, let's go and take a look at domain for functions. Guys, this is a common recurring theme. You need to make sure you understand how to be able to identify the domain of a function. So in this case, I have a h of x is equal to the square root of x minus 4 divided by a x squared minus 25. Now, the two things that I really drill with my students to make sure they understand when we're trying to identify the functions, and again, this is specified for precalculus, you can't divide by 0, you can't take the square root of a negative number. So we have two things going on here. We have an expression in the denominator, and we have an expression under a square root, right? So we know we cannot take the square root of numbers that are less than 0. So what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to take my quantity, my quantity that is inside under my radical, and I'm going to set that to less than or equal to 0, because I need to be able to identify all the values that are going to be wait, no, that needs to be greater than or equal to 0. Geez, Mr. McLogan, come on. These values need to be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so greater than or equal to 0. And then I can simply just solve this plus 4. X has to be greater than or equal to 4. So that means the domain is now restricted here for all values that are 4 or larger, because it can be 0. You can take the square root of 0. You just cannot take the square root of negative numbers in our real number system. Now, the next one is I got to identify, well, what are the values that are going to make my denominator equal to 0? So all we simply do is take our quantity that's in our denominator, say x squared minus 25, and we're going to set that equal to 0, because I want to find the values that make my denominator 0, because those values are not going to be included in my domain. So I'll add a 25 to both sides. I get x squared equals 25. And do not forget, this is probably going to be the most common thing that students will make mistakes on, is forgetting to introduce the plus or minus. So x is going to equal plus or minus a 5, right? So when you introduce the square root, make sure you introduce the plus or the minus. So what right now I have, x cannot equal a plus or minus 5, okay? So those are the values that make my denominator 0 that are not going to be defined in our domain. Now, sometimes you can identify the answer rather quickly, right? Just from there. But sometimes you just kind of need a little bit of visualization of understanding what is our domain going to look like. So a lot of times I tell my students, just draw a number line. All right. So if here's going to be 0, let's say here's -5. That is an undefined value. And let's put a 5 here. That is an undefined value. But then it says my domain is going to be only for values that are large or that are equal to 4 or larger. So let's put 4 right here. And then we're going to do an included circle. It's going to go to 5, but we're going to have to skip 5. And then it's going to go all values over there. Okay. So if I want to write my domain in this case for this problem, I'm going to say the domain is going to be including 4. So we're going to go from 4 to 5. But then I'm going to skip over 5. That's why I use the parentheses, because it's not included. Union 5 to infinity, because this continues to go in there. So there's none of these values over here are going to be included in your domain. Next one, given f of x and g of x, find the composite f of g of x and its domain. So composition of functions, very, very common. Make sure you are understood how to do all the operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, but composing a function with another function is critically important. Now, a lot of times it won't be written like this, but I was kind of limited on how I had to text it. So a lot of times you'll see this as written as the fog function, okay? Just remember, f of g of x is the same thing as f of g of x. Now, again, if this notation gets you confused, go back to something simple, right? If I had like f of x equals, I don't know, x plus 1. And if I say, what is f of 0, what do? You replace the x with the 0. So this is going to be 0 plus 1, okay? So all we're doing in this case is we're saying, what is f of g of x? So in this example, what I would simply do is just plug g of x in for my 0, right? So I'd say a g of x plus 1. Now this example, this does not make any sense because I have not defined what g of x is. So let's go through an actual problem. What if I had, actually, let's just go ahead and erase that, because for those of you that are on the video, it'll make some sense. But for those of you that are looking at the cheat sheet, which I'll have this print down, so you guys can go ahead and print this down below. I'll get it to you, for free. And then also, if there's any other stuff that you guys want for precalculus, as far as, getting prepared for your midterm, I'll make sure I have those provided to you guys in the description down below. So let's say f of x is equal to 1 over x plus 2. And let's say g of x is going to be 4 over a x minus 1. All right, so given f and g of x, find the composite of f of g of x. Okay, so we're going to plug g of x into our f of x. Okay, so we're going to say f of g of x that's going to look something like this. 1 over a g of x plus 2. Just like we did in that previous example. However, ladies and gentlemen, what do we know? We know what the value of g of x is, right? We now can rewrite this as 1 over a 4 over x minus 1 plus 2. Now, before we go ahead and get to that, or before we get to the domain, let's see, can we simplify this? Well, what we could do is we could combine our denominators here. We can rewrite that as 2 over 1. Then we can get a common denominator by multiplying by x minus 1 over x minus 1. And then I'm just going to kind of continue because I'm a little limited on my space with my equal sign. So I have a 1 over a 4 plus a 2x, you can apply distributive property, minus 2, all over our common denominator, because now they have a common denominator of x minus 1. And I'm left with a 1 over, let's see, that's going to be a 2x plus 2 divided by a x minus 1. Now again, you have like this fraction being divided, or a number being divided by a fraction. So what we can simply do is multiply by the reciprocal. And what that's going to do is that's going to get rid of this fraction in the denominator. And that's going to leave me with a 2x plus 2 in the top, which is going to give me a final answer of x minus 1 divided by a 2x plus 2. Okay, so that is going to be our final answer. That's going to be the composition. Now let's go and check out what our domain is going to be. So there's two ways we want to check out the domain of our composite function. We want to take the domain of our resultant composition, so our resultant function, as well as what is the inner function that we plugged in. So if we look at the domain here, we know domain is going to be all real numbers except x cannot equal a positive 1. And then if we look over here, we're going to have a 2x plus 2 is equal to 0. You're going to have x cannot equal a negative 1. So my domain is going to be all real numbers except for a 1 and a negative 1. And again, if you have trouble visualizing this or writing the domain down, now again, you could be working with multiple choice, and that'd be great because then it's a little bit easier sometimes to identify what the domain is. But if you don't, then just look at a number line. My domain is going to be all real numbers except for negative 1 and 1. So it's going to go that way, it's going to go between these two, and it's going to continue going that way. So if I want to go ahead and write my domain is going to be from negative infinity to negative 1, union negative 1 to 1, union 1 to infinity.